Hello and welcome to everybody on this Wednesday afternoon. It's a real pleasure to have you here and to share this information with you. You would have received an invitation from Natalie or our automated system saying, come along, we have a Black Friday special on how to become a health and safety training provider. I'm going to go straight to Natalie and I'm going to ask her to introduce herself, and then we're going to get into the presentation proper.
Hi everyone, I'm Natalie and I'm the CRM manager. So I'm usually your first point of contact on your journey to becoming a licensee. I'm your go-to for any initial questions, any admin related queries, and scheduling of chats with Ken. Great to have you with us today, and we look forward to engaging with you further. Enjoy the session.
Natalie, thank you so much. And those of you that are looking at Natalie's name and surname, yes, she's my daughter. So it's a family business, and the person that's missing at the moment is Penny. Penny's my wife and our financial director, and she's just working on another project, and she will be back later on this afternoon. But if you have any questions of a financial nature, she's definitely the one that you'll be talking to. But in the meantime, let's get into the presentation. I'll provide you with as much information as possible. And to all of you that have just joined, welcome. Lovely to have you with us. So we are recording a session, and it's important to know that because some people don't want to have their names on the screen, so you can switch your name off or take your name off. But for the rest of you, welcome. It's really nice to have you with us. I'm going to give you a little bit of background as to who we are and what we do and where we come from and how it is that we happen to be in this position where we assist people to get their own health and safety training department up and running. And Rocco, that's probably something that would work for you, and or people that want to set up their own health and safety training practice. So this process, I started with a disclaimer just saying, please, it's an educational process. It's for research and development. It's for a better understanding of what it is that we do, but it's not legal advice. Although I enjoy the law has been part of my life since a young man. I became a law enforcement officer with the South African Police. I landed up in the drug squad, which was a very, very interesting time during the latter part of the hippie movement. I was down in Durban. And then I moved to Cape Town, where I joined the military police. I was in the Navy for a while, and John Brown's with us at the moment. And John, I think, was shortly after that we met. I became a security manager, having resigned my position as an officer in the Navy. And then from there, they said to me, would you do health and safety? And I went, yeah, I didn't even know what it was really. My company very graciously sent me on a number of training programs with NOSA, and I landed up working for NOSA for 5 years. After 5 years, I actually left them and I started one of South Africa's very, very first health and safety training companies. And in fact, to call it a health and safety training company is not right. Because at the time, there was a piece of legislation that was called the Factories Act, and they did not talk about occupational health in that act. At a later stage, they transitioned from the Factories Act to the Machinery and Occupational Safety Act, the MOS Act as we used to know it, and they still didn't reference health, occupational health. And it was only with the arrival of the Occupational Health and Safety Act that we had health that was attached to the name and obviously to the legislation as well. So from that, you can hear I've been around for quite some time. I'm incredibly fortunate to have met every single one of the chief inspectors. I've known some of them personally, and I still interact with some of them. So I have a little bit of an edge when it comes to what's happening in the workplace. And something that is going to happen within the near future is the promulgation of the Occupational Health and Safety Act Amendment Bill. If you were to ask me any direct questions on it, I just refer you to the chief inspector. So it's as simple as that. But we will provide more information on that at a later stage. Now, this Occupational Health and Safety Act is a really important piece of legislation, given the fact that it is criminal legislation. We also know that incidents and accidents and occurrences are extremely expensive. And we know from obviously prosecutions of the past that if the employer does not comply with the law, they can land up in court. But not only the employer, contractors, subcontractors, employees, and anybody that could be affected by the law for non-compliance. Very, very important to know that. And what we believe that we help you and certainly other people, we help you keep your employer or your client out of court and the employees out of hospital. Now, hospital, we know all about. And I joke about it and I say, if you look at those 3 x-rays down at the bottom there, you'll see the one in the middle with the nails or screws into the person's spine. That's my spine. I broke my back in a sporting accident a little while ago, about 2 years ago, and that's what I look like. So I know exactly what that's like. And I spent quite a long time in a wheelchair. Now, Don't feel sorry for me, because the last operation that I had was an absolute success, and we're able to walk and not run, but cycle and swim and do normal life things. So our objective is to keep employers and employees out of court and to keep employees out of hospital. That's what this is all about. And we know that for a fact that there is over 16 million employees in South Africa. It's a combination of people who are employed by organizations or alternatively who are self-employed. Now, I'm going to quickly just labor this point over here about 16 million. That's the size of the health and safety training market in South Africa. There's another 500,000 of people that employees that work in the mines under the Mines Health and Safety Act, but we don't focus on it. That's not our speciality. Okay, so that's the size of the market. Just bear that in mind. It's a huge market, and it provides us with a wonderful business opportunity. So if you should either decide to do it on your own for yourself, that's great. Alternatively, if you happen to be within an organization where the organization has a training department or wants to get into the world of training, they can do that. And we are geared to help people with that. Okay, so now, I like the legislation in as much as I believe that the legislators, the Department of Employment and Labor, they are our best marketing agents. Imagine this. If somebody said, you have to buy this fridge or stove or car, you have to buy it. Well, in this instance, what the legislators say, you have to do training. It's compulsory, not optional. It's not something that people go, well, I don't feel like it. Because have a look at what Section 8 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. I'm going to call it the OSA. Section 8 starts off by saying that the employer must establish the hazards attached to the work performed, blah, 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 blah. So that's duty number 1 for the employer. Then duty number 2, it says that the employer, now that he or she has identified the hazards, they must write precautionary measures. They must take these precautionary measures. And in our game, we normally call them safe work procedures, protocols. And that means once you've got that, you can then combine it into step 3 or duty number 3. Because now that we know, or the employer knows what the hazards are, what the precautionary measures are, that must be written into either one of 3 sessions over there: information, instruction, and training. Now, interesting that they use those 3 words in our legislation. We see it coming up again and again in the regulations, and this is not new. It's used internationally: information, instruction, training, and supervision. Question that I ask people is, can you prove that you've provided information? Can you prove that you've provided instruction? And can you prove that you've provided training? And that's where we come into the picture. We, you, me, and the people in the health and safety training market. It then carries on and reasserts itself in as much as it says the employer must cause every employee to be made conversant. Now, that's interesting. The previous section was Section 8. This is Section 13. And if you look at it, it says every 16 million employees to be made conversant. That is a massive market. Okay, now that's where they are employed by an employer, of course. We carry on. Have a look at that word every, and you're going to see it comes up in different forms. And then we look at the word conversant. We go, what does that mean? It means that the person can converse or talk about the hazards to their health and safety, blah, 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 blah. And then, remember, step 2, Section 8, they must also be able to talk about the precautionary measures or the safe work procedures that must be observed or taken. So it immediately tells us the standard. First and foremost, who? Everyone. Secondly, how much? They need to be able to talk about it. What must they be able to talk about? The precautionary measures. So I say this to people on an ongoing basis. If you're running a generic health and safety training program, you need to make sure that you are including the safe work procedures. You need to talk to the employer and get the risk profile data and then build it into the training program. Now, you also find that there are definitions in the legislation, and there is a definition for a person called a competent person. That's important because you'll see we talk about competency certificates. And it's the competency definition says it's a person who has, in respect to the work or task to be performed, the required knowledge, training, and experience, blah, 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 blah. Okay, now you can read it yourself, but you'll see that that then references the NQF Act, the National Qualification Framework Act. And then it carries on with that paragraph at the bottom that says, and the person must be familiar with the Act. and the applicable regulations. Now, that's interesting. So it's almost two courses. I'm talking business with you. I'm saying to you, you do the course, like, for instance, the law requires that people do firefighting. Well, the law doesn't require it. The hazard identification would say that we have a problem, we need to have fire teams, so the person must be competent and they must be familiar with the act. It's two courses or two elements that need to be dealt with. Okay, so where does the law say the person must be competent? Of the 22-23 regulations, those are the regulations where it comes up and talks about competency. The first four, the first aid, lifting, working at heights, and ergonomics regulations, that's exactly where it says the person must be competent. We'll talk about each one of these independently or individually. So first aid, we know there is a requirement for first aid training to take place. We also know that in terms of the driven machinery regulation, that lifting gear and cranes and forklifts and JCBs and things like that, the person must be competent who's going to operate it. Then working at heights under the construction regulation and ergonomics. We'll come back to ergonomics in a moment because you'll see that there's a note over there that says only risk assessors must be competent. Okay, so having said that, let's move on. Ergonomics is a regulation that I want to use just as an example, because if we're talking business and you want to go into business, the question is there an opportunity for me? Can I actually do this? And if you happen to be a trainer within an organization, what must we do within the organization to ensure that the regulations are complied with? Now, remember criminal legislation, and we also know that the ergonomics regulation came out around about the same time as COVID. So the regulation came out, and I trust that you've had the opportunity of reading it. But what I like about these regulations, it talks about training, as does the ergonomics regulation. Now, previously we spoke about every employee. Now, here in the ergonomics regulation, they don't use the word every, they say all. It also tells us when this training must take place. It says that after the training has taken place, that refresher training must be done. And it's not just the employer who must do the training. It says designers, manufacturers, importers, sellers, suppliers, and so forth. They must all train. Now, at this stage, I'm sure you've heard of SACWA, SETA, NQF, QCTO, and all these things. And if you haven't yet, one of our jobs is to make you familiar with it so that you know and understand how this all works. Now, interestingly enough, that this government gazette was issued by the Department of Employment and Labor, and it appears as though there was no discussion between them or no completion of the discussion between them and the Department of Higher Education. Why I say that? Well, it's not covered in any accreditation system. How about that? And we know that with SETAs, we've got things called unit standards, and with QCTO, the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations, we've got things called codes. That's the curriculum. That's the course content. Now, there's a lot more information that we will share with you. But having said that, it means that tomorrow you can run, remember those three words, information sessions. You can run legitimately and above board without any special approval or accreditation or registration. You can run instruction sessions, and you can also run training sessions. You go, wow, that's interesting. So somebody said to me a while ago, probably about 6 months ago, all health and safety training must be accredited. And my request to him was, if you can show me where that is in the law, then I will acknowledge it, but it's not written into the law. It is good practice. It makes a great deal of sense. And we'll talk a lot more about accreditation. Now, what if we don't do it? Remember, once again, we had all and every and now any person. That includes employees and contractors and subcontractors. And it says, in terms of the OSA, if any person breaks the law and they are found guilty, there is a 50,000 Rand fine for each offense. Now, I did mention a little while ago that we also know that the Occupational Health and Safety Act is going through a transition. And they call it the Amendment Bill. And they've been talking about this for some time. And John Brown, you'll know, John, that this has been something that has been discussed for a long, long time. And now it's coming up again. Have a look at the fine that they're replacing the 50,000 Rand with. Now it's 5 million Rand. Look at that. That's crazy. Okay, now I say it's crazy, and I know that there's a lot of feedback and pushback and so forth about this fine. However, I said to you that the Department of Employment and Labor are our very best sales and marketing agents. All you need to do, if you have a client base, is say to them, do you know that the fines are going to be 5 million rand? Okay, we're still going to wait to see whether they're promulgated. And there's a lot of discussion, and I've served on various committees around this piece of legislation. But 5 million, I don't have a spare 5 million to pay a fine. And by the way, you may or may not know this. This is per offense. Now, more recently, you'll know that there was a building that collapsed in George. Very sad. I think 33 people died. So could you imagine this? And I'm not a prosecutor by any means. That would be 5 million times 33 people. Could be, but we'll talk to our attorney friends about that. Okay, so now this comes back to what we've been saying. We've been assisting people to get up and running so that they can run health and safety training courses either in-house or alternatively they can run it as independent training providers. I'm going to talk to you quickly about how our mechanism works, and with the background that we've got, having spent a lot of time in the occupational health and safety training world. I ran that company for about 8 or 9 years. We had about 20 staff members, Cape Town, Durban, Joburg, East London, PE. We traveled around, we did a lot of work, and at the time, a little bit younger, a little bit more flexible, and it meant that I got to see what's going on in the world of occupational health and safety in South Africa. I also got to meet some very, very influential people. And then we decided what we would do. And I say we, it was Penny and myself. We decided that we would create a mechanism, like a business model that looks almost like a franchise. Now, if you know anything about franchises, you'll know that franchises, they rule the roost. If you join and buy one of the franchises, fast food franchises, it has to be exactly as the franchisor dictates. However, the Consumer Protection Act governs franchises and licenses. Now, licenses are a lot more flexible. So we've opted for a license model. And those different elements that you're looking at over there are the elements of the license model. And I'm going to talk it through with you. And then Natalie's going to make sure that you've got the prospectus if you haven't got it yet. Because pretty much everything that I say to you here, you'll get it in writing. And when you get the prospectus, my request is that you actually print it, grab a highlighter, go through it, and list all your questions, and then set up a one-on-one meeting with Natalie and Penny and myself. We'll happily do that. Okay, so we then decided that what we'd do is we'd have different licenses. And if you work from the bottom of that list on the right-hand side, the two ones in white, that's Fast Track and Starter. Those two do not receive everything in that license model. They receive everything that's in orange or gold. The other three, the basic, the prime, and the platinum, they receive everything. So I highlighted in color just so that you understand there are certain things that you will not get if you go for starter, but you will get if you go for basic, prime, and platinum. Then maybe there are a couple of people over here that only want to be first aid training providers. And that's what the Fast Track is all about. Okay, so platinum gets everything, so does prime, and so does the basic. But the starter only gets the stuff that's in yellow. Alrighty. Now, if you come on board as a licensee, I'm not going to use the word franchisee again, but if you come on board as a licensee, obviously you want to make sure that you know what you're doing. So we have a couple of activities. First and foremost, we have an activity called an onboarding, which Penny does. And then we do a monthly orientation, a business orientation, where we talk about legislation, we talk about products, we talk about changes in the marketplace, we talk about finance and admin and legal and things of that nature. And it's a great session. It's very interactive, and the people come back going, wow, that's super interesting. Because a lot of people that get into the health and safety training world have never run their own business. And that's the intention. We've got an ops manual, and we'll take you through it. Okay. Then I mentioned that we do meetings on a regular basis. I got a phone call just shortly before this presentation, a gentleman by the name of Raymond. Raymond wants to have an appointment. So you would then literally set it up with Natalie, and she would set a date and a time and a place. Well, it's on Zoom or on WhatsApp, and we would be able to answer some questions. Now, the reason we do that is that you may find yourself in a situation where there's something that's still unclear. Okay, then you now have a business and or a department, and you want to take it into the marketplace. So we have Natalie on our side, and Natalie has a degree from UCT in media. and she's worked for a number of ad agencies, and she's helped, gosh, dozens of our licensees get their online marketing presence set up. I'm going to quickly ask her, or I'm going to ask her to quickly just tell you what it is that she will do for you.
Thanks so much. So yes, in the basic and prime license, we include an online presence setup. There's also a bunch of resources that I provide you with and a recorded orientation to take you through the channels that we suggest you have an active presence on. I also help you with an initial setup. If you already have certain platforms set up, then I help you with an audit and we just see how we can get you going with your digital marketing presence. But I provide you with a lot of resources and initial information to get you going and supported with your digital marketing. You're muted.
Great.
There you
Natalie,
go.
thanks so much. So having said that, I think we all start off with limited knowledge of marketing. In some instances, like me, I had no knowledge of marketing. It was sales, marketing, advertising, promotions. I didn't know how to do that. But progressively, I learned. And together with my team, we learned how to do it and become a lot more effective. So it's a bit of a journey, but it's an ongoing process, and you will enjoy it. Because when you start seeing the results, you do some marketing and then there's money in the bank. Oh, it's nothing as pleasing as to see that. There's an old statement that says it's easy to make money, but it's not easy to keep it. So in the orientation sessions, Penny will talk about money management and things of that nature as well. Okay, Natalie, thank you so much. I'll come back to you in a moment. So let's move on. And the next thing that I want to talk about is that we have an e-learning platform as well. Now, this e-learning platform has two primary motives. The first motive is that you, as a newcomer to the health and safety training world, may not know anything about the topic, the subject. You might be familiar with a number of things, but let's go back to ergonomics. Let's say this is something that you're not familiar with. So what we would suggest is that you will have access as a basic or prime licensee to the e-learning platform. You attend the ergonomics program and you complete it and you're certified automatically digitally. Then you watch a couple of videos. The course developer that helped us develop our ergonomics training program is an ergonomist, and you can watch his videos. Then you can unpack the actual ergonomics training material, and voila, you can now run an information session. Please note, I'm calling it an information session because that's a requirement by law. You saw that. However, I'm saying as well that at that stage, we're pretty much still novices. We're generalists. We know something about and it's useful. We're not experts and we're not, that could come. We're not specialists as yet. That could be part of the journey. Okay, so then you have access to all 15 of our e-learning programs. 2 new programs are going to be launched shortly before the end of the month. That'll take us up to 17. And these 17 programs is an orientation, an education for trainers and licensees. Okay, so having said that, then there is a second element which is quite exciting, is that you'll see that there are fees, and we'll be talking about them just now, but the fees need to be paid. How do you pay them? Well, maybe if you're starting out in business and you don't have a large sort of client base and your cash flow is limited, you can use the e-learning platform and on-sell the e-learning courses. And Penny, her nickname is Money Penny, like the James Bond character, Penny will share the proceeds with you. 50% of the proceeds she'll share with you. So that's exciting. Then once you've finished all of these, you then receive a certificate that we've called the HASMAN, the Health and Safety Management Certificate. And from there onwards, you can actually put your clients or your staff or your facilitators onto exactly the same learner-driven training program. Okay, now, having said that, I said, if you want to run the ergonomics course, you watch the videos, you do the e-learning, you go through the material. And this material is we'll call it our original material that we developed ourselves. It is a legal compliance training program or platform. And I'm going to just quickly identify them because you can barely see it over there on the screen. And I'll show you what you can do. As original material, what we've got is that we've got, I just want to quickly change some setting over here. Okay, I apologize. We've got 24 programs. That's why I can't do it. Somebody's trying to call me. We've got 24 programs. 24 programs that are designed specifically so that you can run them. First one is legislation, Occupational Health and Safety Act. And as you get to know it, you'll be able to run information sessions on that, or instruction sessions, or later on, you'll be able to run training sessions. We have a program on HIV and AIDS. We have a program on asbestos, and there's a regulation called the Asbestos Abatement Regulation. Then we've also got the COIDA, the Compensation of Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act. We've got a program teaching people how to manage the claims. We have construction regulations so that you would know something about and or you would be able to share this information with your clients. Now, I really say this, that not all of this would apply to you, but much of it would. And then a program which we are just finishing off right now is our Working in Confined Spaces program. And I've been doing a fair amount of research on this specific topic, and it is horrendous. There is a thing called second victim syndrome, and you may be familiar with it. But when people get stuck in these drains or pits or boilers or holes or containers, and somebody goes in to rescue them, you have a second victim, sometimes a third victim, and sometimes a fourth victim. So real scary stuff. And if you are in the training business and you can keep people alive, that is awesome. Okay, got COVID-19, and you go, why COVID-19? We thought that was gone. Well, you'll see that when you're going for your QCTO accreditation, it's a question that they ask. And for that purpose, we've included the COVID-19 training material. Then for those of you that are in the trucking business or have vehicles that contain dangerous goods, there is the Dangerous Goods by Road workshop or training material, electricity, environmental awareness, ergonomics, the one we've been talking about, and falling. Now, this is not a construction regulation fall arrest course. This is just basic protection. People slipping, tripping, falling, and they fall off all kinds of interesting things which they should not have climbed up onto. So this is not on a construction site. There is a construction regulation that deals with that. Then number 13 is basic firefighting. First aid, we'll come back to that one. That's an important one. And this is non-General Safety Regulation 3, life skills training for clubs and groups and churches and mosques and temples and anywhere you've got people coming together. We've got life-saving teams. We've got scuba diving teams. We've got people like that that actually use our training material there. Then there's food hygiene for the worker and food hygiene for the workplace, health and safety representative, hazardous chemical substances and agents, HIRA, which is the hazard identification and risk assessment, induction, which is the initial workplace awareness, investigation in the event of an incident taking place, noise, there's a noise-induced hearing loss regulation as well, supervision, remember we saw inform, instruct, train, and supervise, and then we have a new program that we brought out recently on the use and care of hand tools. So 24 programs. And it literally is a matter of asking your clients, which of these programs apply to you? And then going to the client and say, we'll do this one, that one, that one, that one. And in our orientation, we talk about selling bundles of training, not single individual courses. Sell a bundle. Make sure that the client's needs are fully met. Okay, so you can literally say there's, first and foremost, the health and safety system. And the health and safety system would require members of management and supervisors and foremen and charge hands, people like that. They would go through this setup over here. And if you look at that, you'll see that there's obviously legislative training for the employer, then the health and safety reps and supervisors, then how do we do a HIRA, how do we do investigations? We've got first aid, which we'll talk about, construction regulations. If these regulations apply to you, the COIDA, which is the Compensation of Injuries and Diseases regulation, and so forth. Now, that's the setup of the management within the organization, with more to come. Then, remember we said that the employer must identify the dangers, hazards, and risks. There we go. There they are. Some of them, more to come. And then health, hygiene, and wellness as well. Now, I mentioned to you that we've been developing these training programs, and we're about to finish our Working in Confined Spaces course. That course will keep people alive, as will these other programs that you're looking at. So if you're looking to generate income from this, it's a great opportunity with a massive market. But secondly, you'll find that the content and quality of the material is of such a standard that you can use it literally almost without customization, but we do urge you to customize it to make sure that those safe work procedures are included. Okay, more on that. Let me just quickly talk about what you get when you receive any one of these packages, or all 24 of them, or depends on which ones you want. There are facilitator guides and learner guides and facilitator visuals and support material. And you also get a lot of rights. And those rights will allow you to print as many workbooks as you want to, including a certificate. And you'll then be in a position where you can actually issue a certificate of attendance. But please note, folks, not a certificate of competency. That's a different kettle of fish. That comes up either in the regulations, or now we're talking SAQA, SETA, and NQF. Okay. So having said that, you can issue a certificate to your client or your learner that is a certificate of attendance. Now, you may decide, well, we want more. We want accreditation, we want approval, we want recognition, we want verification, we want to be regarded as a high credibility organization. So we've got over 50 SAQA unit standard aligned training programs. Now, you may or may not know that there's a transition that's taking place in South Africa from SETA, the Sectoral Educational Training Authority, to the QCTO, which is the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations. And we also know that QCTO, or at least SAQA, my apologies, SAQA instructed all the SETAs to stop the use of their unit standards. And there was something of an outcry, and then they turned around, they backtracked, and they said, no, until 2026, all the unit standards that have been extended can be used. The same applies when it comes to accreditation. So if you were already a SETA accredited organization, you can continue operating with that accreditation until 2026, or the expiry date on your accreditation certificate. But, big but, unfortunately, the SETAs are no longer accrediting new providers. Now we have to go to QCTO. Okay, now that's an interesting discussion here, because some of you may already be accredited and you want to run those courses, but you heard, nope, they've cancelled it, they expired. Fortunately, you can go onto this website and you can see which unit standards have been extended. Maybe you'd like to just grab your camera or your phone and take a photograph of that URL, and you'll then be able to go on there and you can do a search. You search with the unit standard number and it'll tell you whether it has been extended or not. We also know that they've extended it to the end of June 2026, but we don't know what else is coming. Maybe they're going to go back and say, well, and you can get your SETA accreditation by going to the SETA. Now, I find that the SETA accreditation process and the administration that goes with it, it's bureaucracy, but I find that that's actually a little easier than QCTO. However, QCTO has now made the giant leap and they've gone digital. Now that's making it a lot easier. It's all very doable and we'll assist you to get there. So let me just quickly talk about this QCTO, if this is the first time you're hearing about it. So the QCTO has now taken over the responsibility of accreditation from the SETAs. And instead of having unit standards like we had with the SETAs, they've now got codes. And you can see that there are 3 levels there. Level 1 is just a skills program. That's the short courses, 1, 2, and 3-day courses. Then they've got part qualifications, and then we've got full qualifications. So a skills program could literally be a 1, 2, 3, 4-day course, short course. I used to call them micro courses. Part qualifications is an interesting one, in as much as they are starting to prepare the learner, or you're starting to prepare the learner for a trade or occupation. So if you look at that title, QC, Quality Council, for trades and occupations, that's what they're doing with the part qualification. Let's get this person on the road to getting a qualification, and once they've completed that, they can then do the full qualification. So full qualifications, such as a health and safety officer, that's a job, that's an occupation, that's not a trade, but it's a job, and they're appointed and paid to be the health and safety officer, or whatever you want to call them. But a health and safety representative is not an occupation. The health and safety rep, they would do a skills program, a short course, just so that they're familiar with their tasks and responsibilities. Okay, now we have training material for that as well. And more recently, I mentioned that I hurt my back really badly, landed up in hospital, had 2 operations, and I came out from the second operation to discover that the new first aid curriculum had been written. I went, wow. Now, a little bit of history. First aid used to be governed and managed by the Department of Employment and Labor, and we used to have level 1, 2, and 3. Then there was a transition to SETA, so we had to rewrite all the training material. And now there's a transition to QCTO, where they've got these programs called Basic, Intermediate, and Advanced. Those are already in place. We've got them. And we've got the training material as well. Then you'll see that there's 12 health and welfare SETA QCTO skills programs, which they've listed. And Penny and I have been privileged to work on their work group, helping them to develop that. We don't anymore because it's incredibly time consuming. And these guys at QCTO, they seem to have the whole day to do things. But those of us that run businesses, we can't do that. But be that as it may, progress is being made, and we can anticipate in 2025 there's going to be a lot of progress. And we know for a fact that they are publishing new curricula as we're speaking. They're getting ready to launch it. So what we've been doing in the meantime is, of these 12 or any of the skills programs, we're writing the training material now. The day before yesterday, I received another one from one of our developers, and she's done an excellent job. And that specific one is on investigation, how to do an investigation. So when the curriculum comes out, we will then take it, just do the final alignment of our training material that's already completed, or let's say almost completed, let's say it's at 90%. We'll complete it, and you as a licensee will receive that training material as well. Okay, so the last thing that I'll mention over here is that we see for a fact that the QCTO, they will treat you as a training provider more like a college than a one-man operation. Please bear that in mind, because you'll see some of their criteria for accreditation leans heavily towards a college. Okay, so I said we've got that training material and it's ready to rock and roll. We've had a number of people that have already received their accreditation for first aid with the QCTO. There's the website that you can go and have a look and see which new skills programs. I was on that website this morning. I'm on there probably 3-4 times a week, and you can see which new skills programs have been published. Okay, sure, that was a mouthful. Now, I've been talking about QCTO and accreditation, and I can see that this accreditation is a really important element. Clients will ask you for it, but also you as a reliable provider should go for it. So what we'll do is this, that Penny has developed a thing called the Accredi Pack. And the Accredi Pack is literally a Google Drive file with a combination of almost every single form, document, template, layout, whatever that you're going to need for your QCTO accreditation. In the past, we used to say to people, go and speak to a consultant who will help you with your accreditation. However, we see now that the QCTO has published that they don't want to work with consultants and agents. They want to work with you, the applicant. So we realized working with consultants and agents is expensive. They need to be paid. So we don't do that anymore. We used to. There was a time when we used to have a lady that did it for us. Now, what we'd rather do and are rather doing is we're training educating our licensees to do their own accreditation. And the next accreditation workshop is tomorrow. So Penny will be running this accreditation workshop tomorrow morning. If you are super keen and you want to come on board, you can tell Natalie, and then she'll send you the link to tomorrow's session. And you can then start the journey. The sooner you start the journey, the better. Now, I'm sounding like a salesman, but essentially, you can imagine that the QCTO is almost overwhelmed with applications. And the sooner you get your application in, the better, which means that next year you'll get your accreditation. When next year, I don't know. People are talking about 6 months before the accreditation comes through. So if you want to operate as a accredited QCTO first aid training provider, you can. It's possible, it's doable, and we have a number of people that have already achieved that. So a little bit of a deadline as in tomorrow. Okay, now, I mentioned to you that if you want to do, let's say, ergonomics, we've got a YouTube channel. And some of the interviews that we've had with our developers, we record it, we put it on there so that you can go there. We also have all kinds of other health and safety speakers that come along, and you and your team would then be more than welcome to attend any of our webinars that we host. So feel free, this is part of the educational process or the orientation of our licensees, and we'll take you to the website and we'll show you around. Okay, Now, here's an interesting thing as part of the business model is that we operate in over, oh gosh, got over 100 licensees in Africa. So if you have somebody that you would like to be trained in Ghana or Kenya or Nairobi or someplace like that, Uganda or Mozambique or Angola, we have people out there. But then maybe you don't have contacts in those countries, but you just want to go and have some training done, or your client wants training done in Kimberley or Welkom or Bloemhof, or we've got people out there and you can network with them. So almost immediately, you now have a network of about 100 other trainers that can collaborate with you. We don't get involved in the setting up of the deal, but you pay them their portion, they do the training for you, and or vice versa. It's a wonderful opportunity. It's Penny often talks of the intra-tribe, and we see it all the time, how our licensees talk to each other, assist each other, guide each other, correct each other. And that's just phenomenal. It's really, really good. Okay, more about that later on. So let me just quickly go through the license again. I'm sure you now understand those different elements. And I've spoken through the different ones, all the orange ones for everybody, Platinum, Prime, and Basic. They get everything, whereas the starter only gets the stuff that's in orange or yellow. Okay, so now I'm going to ask Natalie, while I take a sip of water, just to quickly talk through some of these options that we've got. Natalie, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. So we've got the fast track bundle, which is perfect for those who want to present QCTO, basic, intermediate, and advanced first aid training. It also gives you access to the QCTO DIY accreditation workshop. It gives you the right to co-brand and use the Intra logo, right to modify and customize the material, and also the right to reproduce copies of the intra-learner materials. It does not give you the right to reproduce facilitated material, and it doesn't have a monthly license fee attached to it.
Great. We'll explain the monthly license fee in a short while. Thanks, Nats. I said we'll take a sip of water. And the next one is the starter. Now, the starter bundle is something that you may want to consider, and Natalie will explain the detail of that.
So the starter bundle is great for those who want to initially get started without the initial investment that the basic and the prime packages entail. You get 6 intra original training materials, the right to reproduce copies of the intra learner materials. You don't get the right to reproduce the facilitator material in this one. You have access to any of the 6 e-learning courses. You have the right to resell the e-learning training, and you have the right to issue certificates of attendance. This bundle also does not have a monthly license fee attached to it. And you have the option to upgrade to, it should say, the basic and prime license.
Yes. So it is a step in the right direction. If this is where you want to start, you can start with starter, and then you can upgrade to basic, and you're quite right, Natalie, or to prime. Okay, so let's quickly talk through the basic. This is ideal for somebody that is a one-man, one-person training operator, or you have one office, and you want to then develop your business and take it to the prime level. With basic, you're going to get all 24 of those original training materials, plus any new material that we bring out. You'll receive access for 2 people to go onto the e-learning for orientation purposes. You will complete the 15 e-learning programs and get the HAZMAT certificate. Also, Natalie's services kick in over here, where she will assist you with your online marketing presence and setup and audit and things of that nature. We have this monthly orientation session that we spoke about. And of course, this is where the license kicks in. For instance, I was just saying that I'm about to finish our working in confined spaces course, and the monthly license fee then includes all that material. There's no additional fee. When it's finished, we just say to you, collect it out of Google Drive. Now, when you're upgrading at each one of those stages, we will then obviously credit you what you have paid off the next fee. And the next one over here is the prime license. Natalie?
Sorry, I was just looking at the chat. There's a question that came in there.
Great.
So the prime license includes everything that was mentioned in the basic license. You receive our full suite of training material, which includes 50 plus SACWA line training material, plus our QCTO training material currently sitting at 4. You'll receive any new QCTO or updated training material. You'll get access to all of our QCTO accreditation DIY workshops. And this does include the monthly license membership fee. And you'll also get access to our downloadable PDF articles and resources.
Absolutely. Now, Rocco, the next one may be interesting to you. This used to be called our corporate license, and the corporate license is ideal for large organizations, multi-branch, multi-region, multi-country, and so forth. And the corporate license includes the rights to the property, the information. So the intellectual property becomes your right. So you can use that intellectual property for training. You can replicate the facilitator material. And if you want to set up your own e-learning platform, you'll then have access to all 15 and later on all 17. And as that grows, you can use that for setting up your own e-learning platform. You'll notice that we've also included in the 5 trainers can attend the e-learning content orientation, which is so useful. And that's e-learning. So in other words, will give you access and passwords and usernames to the e-learning platform. And of course, there's also a monthly license fee there as well. I'm going to move on and I'm just going to talk about the fees. Well, in fact, Natalie's going to just introduce the first one and just talk to you about the fees. You can see the standard fee. And then, of course, on the right-hand side, you'll see there the Black Friday special that's valid for today, for this month. Okay, that's the first one.
So our fast track bundle comes in with a standard fee of 11,890, and you'll see our November 10% price is 9,832. This is just a once-off fee. There's no monthly membership fee as mentioned. And then our starter bundle, also just a once-off fee. Our standard price is 17,825, and our November discounted rate is 16,042. All the prices are inclusive of that. And then there's our basic license, which includes an upfront fee plus the monthly membership fee. Our standard upfront fee price is 33,925. And our November rate is 30,500.
And as you say, that's VAT inclusive. So when people start looking at these prices and they go, I just want to mention to you once again, no, I haven't mentioned, let me mention it to you now for the first time. Any and all expenses incurred in setting up a business are tax deductible, which essentially means the moment you decide to get up and running and operating, you need to have an accounting system so that if and when the tax man comes after you, you can deduct these costs. And that means, in some instances, that the tax man, SARS, will sponsor your business for you, which again, I love it. Department of Employment and Labor are our marketing agents, and the tax man is our sponsor if you do your accounting properly. Okay, Natalie, the next one.
Our Prime license also has an upfront fee and the monthly membership fee. The standard upfront fee rate is 56,925, and our November discounted rate is 51,200. Our Platinum license, we usually like to negotiate that just depending on the number of employees, but it starts at a rate of around 114,000. That's the standard rate, and our discounted rate in November is at around 100,000.
So you can see there, it's huge savings for an organization. We have universities and colleges, we have governmental departments, we have large retail operations and manufacturing operations that come in, as we used to call it, as corporates, but now we just call it the Platinum. And the savings are massive, 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 massive. More importantly, at this stage, I just want to point out to you again once. Section 8 says that identify the hazards, identify the precautionary measures, build that information into your information instruction and training sessions. And it means that if you are any of these, if you play the part in any of these situations, you will help the client comply with the law. Do you remember the fine? And that's the point I'm getting to. The fine is currently 50,000 Rand for non-compliance per offense, and it is going to go up to 5 million Rand. And you just mention that to a client, and they will realize this is a huge saving. Now, there is a monthly membership or subscription fee of 1,500 Rand, excluding that, or 1,725, including that. That isn't included in the Black Friday special. So it's 1725. And then, of course, if you wish to acquire any single one, any part of our training material, you can access it at 2,995. That's beyond the Black Friday special, and or currently for this month, 2,695. We have an online shop and you can order it there, or you can contact Natalie or Penny and just order it direct and we'll invoice you. And then, of course, we'll deliver it digitally to you and you can collect it and do your customization and get going. So from all of that, it's been an absolute privilege. I see we've got a couple of minutes for questions, just to say that this might be a business opportunity and or, if not directly to make money, but to save money if you're a corporate. I believe that this is an opportunity that I wish I had when I started my business many years ago, 25, 30 years ago. I wish I had it. It would have been wonderful. Could have got up and running a lot quicker and made it more profitable. And I would have more hair on my head and have slept a lot better. But I don't have the hair, too late. And I lost out on a lot of sleep as a result of setting up a business. But this is going to be, in many, many instances, the answer. Okay, a little bit of an action plan. If you want to qualify for the special, what we're going to suggest is that you communicate with Natalie, confirm which license you want, show us the proof of payment. Natalie will send you a quotation and then later on an invoice. Then we will deliver the material to you and start with the delivery of the services, as we've spoken about. Penny will do the onboarding and I'll do the orientation. And then you receive the material via Google Drive and you start with the customization of it. Customizing as in logos and fonts and styles and images and pictures and safe work procedures and things like that. And of course, you want to put in your own videos, that's totally cool. We're happy with that. And then, of course, you can get up and running and start training. So I've already seen people with licenses where, because they already know the subject matter and they're comfortable with it, they will be up and running within a week. Literally up and running. Now, of course, you need to know something about sales and marketing. You need to know about advertising and promotions, and we'll talk you through that. And that's why Natalie's services are going to be so valuable to you. Now, if you are interested, can I just ask you to WhatsApp BF, Black Friday quote, to Natalie's business number, which is 082 499 6911. That's 082 499 6911. You take a photograph of that screen. You then establish contact with her. If she's not already in contact with you, you can talk to her directly. And we can, as they say in the classics, we can get you rocking and rolling. So I just want to say at this stage, thank you so much. Don't go. I'm going to switch off the recording. And then we're just going to open the microphones and we'll ask anybody who would like to ask some questions. Natalie mentioned there's somebody in the chat box that asked a question. Now, if you happen to be watching this video on YouTube, please don't hesitate to give us a call, set up a meeting, and we can definitely talk you through it. Lastly, if there's anybody that wants to take advantage of the Black Friday special, remember it continues to the end of this month, and that's it for this year. I think I've dealt with it all. Natalie, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, that's all from my side. Thanks so much.
Great. Alrighty. So I'm going to end now. I'm going to say to those of you that are here live, thank you for joining us. And those of you that are watching the video, thank you for going through the video. Look forward to receiving information, instructions from you guys and seeing how we can help you set up. Good. With that, thank you so much. And let me switch the recording off. All the best then. Bye for now.